So we put our projection year. This is projection year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 10. And then we create, sort of a discount factor, right? And so for a given year, we want to just apply the discount rate to the free cash flow for that year, So we want it, and like I said, this is simply a presentation thing. We could have applied the discount mathematically in other ways, but just as a presentation thing, we do this formula. And we take it to, with regards to the specific projection year, we're going to actually take, 1 divided by 1 plus the discount rate, like I said, the 1.14, in this case, 1.10954, to the power of whatever year we're projecting out. So, in this year, and it just makes for an easier calculation because we just multiply the discount factor, by the unlevered free cash flow, and then we get a discount, for that particular year. So we can take that all the way across. We can calculate a year-over-year change. And then we calculate a terminal year value. And the purpose of a terminal year value is essentially, because there's the 10 years we're working with in the nearest term calculations. But the terminal year is really going to take us out, sort of out into forever. Assuming that this company goes on forever, we know it can't grow forever. We know it can't last forever. But we need something that sort of gives us that feel for what the rest of time represents. And so again,
how many years would you take?
Well, the actual discounted cash flow valuation can be anywhere from 3 to 10. You usually wouldn't go over 10. And the terminal year is just sort of like a final, just sort of a final value that takes into, that takes into account the same discount rate that you used, the same weighted average cost of capital that you used previously, and just assumes the company, just out into perpetuity. It's sort of like it can grow, if it's growing, like, because if you're discounting every year forever, then you eventually discount to nothing, right? So it sort of just takes you out into eternity. I don't know how else to describe it. It's the company's going to go on for more than 10 years, right? But it doesn't. But we can't project out. Nobody wants to project out 120 years or even attempt that. You can't reasonably do it.
Right.
So what you do is you assume a long-term growth rate for the company, and you keep the same discount rate. So eventually, it just goes. It gives you a number that represents the value of the company forever going forward after this 10-year period. So you take the 10-year period, and then you take the terminal value, and you put them together, and that's the theoretical value of the company.
Right.
Is that clear? Is that clear to everyone, or is there anybody that's not clear on that? I mean, it's kind of an odd concept, but it's just a way for us to put a value on the rest of time after our evaluation period. Because what we assume is that this 10 years is the only thing we can reasonably project. You know, I mean, the guy who was making horses and buggies couldn't have reasonably projected a Model T within his period 10 years before the Model T. Because 10 years before, there was really nothing like it. You know? So he was actually going to be out of business in 10 years. You know? But point being is that within a reasonable span of time, people investing in the horse and buggy business would have still made sense to go ahead and invest because they just couldn't know anything beyond that. So what you do is you assume that the horse and buggy business is going to kind of grow, not as aggressively as it's been growing, because businesses over time tend to grow less aggressively. We know that. And then we still want to apply that discount rate. But, you know, as you go further and further out, that dollar is worth less and less and less and less and less and less and less. So the discount is going to have more and more and more and more and more and more effect. You know?
Right. Okay. So you would go into but would that not skew the rate?
It can, but like I said, this kind of cash flow is a tough. That's why it's tough, because you can choose the wrong growth rate, you know, and the terminal value end up huge. Yeah, so that's just, yeah, I mean, the best way to look at this in practice, and you'll find this when you talk to anybody about DCFs. You said you're pretty comfortable with DCFs, so you know this.
When you're buying something, nobody uses DCF.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of things.
DCF, it comes out huge.
Yeah, it comes out very, very weird. So the thing is to use it, but posit it against things like comps and, you know, things like that, to make sure that your assumptions are reasonable. Yeah. But like I said, in the real world, it's just something that people will use if they can get a better number out of a DCF. Like if you're selling a company,
Right. Okay.
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's an academically accepted thing. So you know, when you take corporate finance in B school, you know they're never going to do comps. They're going to always do DCFs.
Right.
It's the intrinsic value thing, but it.
It's not practical.
Yeah, I mean it's much more practical to say, you know, companies in this industry are selling at a 6 times multiple. You deserve a 6 times multiple. If you have one customer, you deserve a 5 times multiple, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, for the IT services company, we did not do a DCF. We did comparable multiples. You see what I'm saying? But you know, like I said, it's an important tool just from the standpoint of knowing everything that's done in the industry. You know, and we can do a comp model here that would take about 5 minutes, you know. But it's important that you guys be aware, of the full gamut of things that you may be possibly expected to either learn very quickly or understand coming in. You know, so for instance, when I was even when I was interviewing for my fellowship, I didn't know how to do a DCF. But just in interviews, you know, I knew to go through that little calculation that we went through. You know, I said, oh yeah, you know, I said, so how would you approach a discounted, you know, discounted cash flow valuation? You know, so I said, oh well, you know, yeah, so you know, I just, you know, I just take EBIT, add back depreciation, subtract off change in working capital. You know, subtract off, you know, CapEx. I give them a few cash flows, and I, you know, pick a discount rate and discount it back. Now, at that time, I had no idea what the change in working capital even meant. You know, but I knew I could learn it. You know, so at the time, I just needed to know what it was that I was supposed to know, that I was supposed to be talking about. You know, so I learned it. You know, by the next round of interviews, I was good to go. The point being is that sometimes what's important is that you understand what's out there, you know, and in practice it's always going to be different. You know, there's going to be some firms that are never going to use certain valuation methods and things like that. But for whatever purposes, you know, a lot of times if you're doing a fairness opinion on an LBO or an acquisition